The last thing we need to do is publish our game, compile it so that we have something that we can distribute. And as I mentioned above, uh, uh, all of these scenes have to be included in the build settings. So the build settings now over here for my game that I'm going to compile include the start as the first one, and then the rest, the order doesn't matter. I've got play game day, play game night, dead, and win. The one key here is that the start scene has to be the first one in the list, number 0. Now, these numbers also can be used to load a scene. So where I loaded all the scenes with strings by their name, you can also load scenes by their index, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So sometimes that's easier, although you do have to maintain an order in order to make sure things are working correctly. The build settings include the platform for which you wish to build. There are many, many platforms for Unity. I have the build for the PC, and I have the build for Webgl. And something to note here are the quality settings. And this we see in the player settings here. The player settings for our different players, we have the quality settings. We have two different columns here. One is for the PC and the other is for the web. And these go from fastest to fantastic. I believe for the PC, the little green one is the default. For the web GL, this little green one, good, is the default. And it's worth having a look at what the different settings are that affect the speed and quality of our game. Fastest is going to be that which is capable of running on the least competent hardware, whereas fantastic might require a pretty good graphics card in order to do it. But that's worth having a look at. The other settings are in the player. The player, we can set the resolution, and for the presentation, the width and height of the canvas that we're going to use. There's some other settings here that we don't really need to worry about. The defaults are generally all we need to change. Resolution and presentation is how big your window is going to be in your web player. So that is somewhat important to do. So have a look at the different settings and see the different quality options that you can choose. These include things like how many pixel lights there can be, the point lights and spotlights, what kind of shadows are used, and many other things that affect both the GPU and the CPU necessary to render your game. For turned-in games, I will accept Webgl as a non-development build, as it's really a lot smaller than the development build. Or if you happen to have the Mac OS build, I will accept one of those. I will not accept Windows builds, as I don't have a Windows machine and I'm unable to play them. But I can play either Mac OS or Webgl. I have found that any errors, null references, and so forth prevent Webgl from building. It'll give you errors and say, sorry, can't do it. The Mac OS build seems a little more forgiving, especially if the development and debugging are checked. If the first time you downloaded your game, you didn't include the Webgl compiler, you may have to go back to the Unity store and add that package. It's a big chunk of change. It's a gigabyte or more. When submitting the Webgl, if that's what you choose, here's what the Webgl looks like for one of these. This is my build for for this sample game. There are two folders. There's a build folder and a template data folder, and an HTML that is the web page that that one opens. I need all of these. So the thing to do is to zip this folder up into a single something and hand that in. That would be the thing that you'd hand in, the zipped up folder. These web builds are pretty efficient, so that's only 9 megabytes. It's not a big chunk of change. Uh, uh, Whereas the game folder itself is 32 megabytes. So it is pretty efficient. So that's all I have to show you here. We now have a fully functional game with opening scenes. Let me play it just so you can see it. So I go into the daytime game. I'm going to win it quickly. I have the sound turned off so that I'm not making too much noise here. And 4 of these gems should win the game for me. If I can get the game. So I won. It's now cycling back to the menu. Here's the nighttime scene. This one I'll quickly lose. And I am dead. And the game is over. And it does cycle back. And this was said a little funny. Okay, so I'll stop sharing at that point, and stop the recording, and see you all in class. Bye.